It is time for Sunday Morning Live with me, Damien Calmet. How are you today? Today, my talk is going to be on addiction with the inner child. So my outfit today, I'll tell you what, last night I was doing some work on the computer, and my good friend, Reverend Pat Langlois, who is pastor of the UCC MCC Church of the Valley in North Hollywood, was promoting her online show today. And she had her collar on, she had a nice outfit on, and she looked so nice. I thought, okay, you know what, I'll look a little reverend-y today with a little glam to go with it. So this is the Reverend Glam Day today. I want to give a shout out today to my good friend Nicholas Snow. He has just launched his worldwide Promo Homo TV network. And on this Promo Homo TV, go online, check it out, it's fabulous. There are some talks on addiction, some talks for gays and lesbians, some talks on the COVA. There's a whole variety of things that you can get from this Homo Promo TV. Now, Nicholas is a master. His whole setup is so professional. You know, me, I can't even put a website together. And this is about the best I can do just with me. I mean, I am tech, I'm ignorant when it comes to tech. So this week, by virtue of the online net and stuff, I attended a shaman summit, and it had spiritual healers and teachers from all over the country. It was 4 days long, started at 9 in the morning, ended at 4 in the afternoon. And one of the things that it brought to mind was a couple things that I want to talk to you about. When one of the teachers was talking about quantum physics and talking about the duality of the universe and talking about how the energy fluctuates, I understood what that was like because I speak that language to an extent. But I'll tell you, a couple of the teachers were talking, and it was like Greek to me. I had to sit there and I'm looking and I'm thinking, what are they talking about? And I scratched little notes down so I could kind of go back and try to figure it out. And here's what I wanted to say to you today. The 12 Steps is a spiritual guide, although it is laid out with a lot of religiosity and religious terminology. For instance, in step 3, it says, God as we understand him. There is no him. The Bible itself says God is not a man that he should lie. But since God is spirit, if you need God to be him, hey, by all means have him, okay? But we get in this thing of where we get hung up on the verbiage that people use. Now, if I go to hear somebody talk about Hinduism, I know they're going to use verbiage on the Hindu, and I'm going to bring that information to myself in my own way to interpret it, how it's going to affect my life. I'm not going to get hung up on the words that they say necessarily. Now, I'm a Reverend Doctor. I am a cognitive behavioral therapist practitioner. I am a life coach. I am an author, and several other certificates and courses that I have hanging on my wall. But above everything else, I'm a spiritual teacher. And the things that I say to you, I say so that you will question and examine why you believe what you believe and understand what you believe and why you do, and that it's not somebody else's belief. Question it. So today we're going to not do our meditation in the first part. We're going to do it at the end. but I want to talk about the inner child. I want to reiterate something that I said a couple weeks ago. Our inner guidance comes to us through our feelings and our body wisdom first, not through our intellectual understanding. So our inner guidance that we have, that inner compass we have, comes from the feelings we have and how it feels in our body, not through intellectual understanding of it. Now, our inner child that we have lives in the, right where the third chakra is, right above your stomach. Now, we have these chakras that line us up, and the easiest way I can explain that to us is cell phone towers. The cell phone towers give us the energy for us to be able to use our cell phone in certain areas. There are certain energy towers within us that give us the ability to shift energies in different areas for the good, and if they are malfunctioning because of pain, then they shift for bad behavior. Now, in the sixth step, it says that we are going to pray and we're going to ask God to help us with our defects of character. There's no such thing. This creative power, this creative source that I call God, that same creative source that created the universe, put that creative source inside of you and said it was good. That love source inside of you. Now, what happens is we get caught up in the matrix of the world, and our illusionary self begins to take over and form a illusion that has characteristics. For instance, you may have really done some shameful acts, but you are not shame. And the shameful acts you make amends for, but you are not shame. You begin to mold your character, you begin to heal. You begin to heal who you are. Now, all addiction is caused by some sort of pain. We don't just wake up in the morning and decide, oh, we're going to be an addict. Yippee, here we go. And our inner child does not disappear once we become adults. It reminds us of all the traumas and the wounds that we have yet to heal from. It tries to get our attention in all sorts of painful ways, like sometimes debilitating diseases. Sometimes it's addiction patterns. Hello, you know that one? Sometimes it's severe mental health issues. Our inner child is begging us for the love and care that it didn't receive growing up. Now let me explain this a little bit. In this inner child, it is like you take a chicken and you put it in the freezer and it freezes. And then you bring it out and you are going to unthaw it. In where the third chakra is, our inner child lives, and it's been frozen there because we've covered up with addiction, with all sorts of things, and haven't allowed it to heal. Now, in that area here, we may feel powerless, we may feel helpless. Our inner child may be plagued with negative thoughts and behaviors. We have problems setting boundaries. We don't realize that no is a complete sentence. So, how does this work? In the Labor Day weekend in 1949, my mother and my father were at the lake. And my father's name was Charles Ratio. And he threw a snake at my mother and she fell. And she said, Rachel, don't. I might lose the baby. And my father said, I don't want this baby anyway. On January 30th, I was born, left at the hospital, and my mother left. I didn't see her until maybe 2 years later at my father's funeral. I did not leave the hospital with my father. I barely remember what he looks like. So what I learned as a child was how to be abandoned. In my relationships, and I was looking at them last night, every single relationship I have had, I have set it up so I would be abandoned and somebody would leave me. That is the inner child taking over because it doesn't know the reality of the complete whole person that I am inside. And as this has moved through my life, there came a time, I became a very successful evangelist and had crusades all over the country. And when my former wife and I got divorced, it was shortly after that I actually slept with a man. I was 29 when I got married, and I think 31 or 2 when we got divorced. My wife didn't want to be a minister's wife, and I didn't know I'd be anything else. Who knew that I would be a drag personality too? And the shame, because that was a no-no. Now, what happened to you as a child? Just think for a moment. What traumas and what losses did you sustain? And how did they make you feel? How did you respond? Now for me, I buried the trauma deep, deep, deep down within me, and I became silent. I literally became silent. So much abuse and so much trauma happened in my early childhood that for 6 or 7 years, I completely shut down and did not speak a word and had to be taught how to speak all over again. And then as I became more healthy, there were times that I lashed out to people around me. And these unhealthy behaviors, I did not know how to cope with. I lied for simply to lie. I had no clue. I knew how to be bad. I didn't know how to be whole. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes great courage for us to be able to go in and heal that inner child, to be aware of what triggers that inner child. Now, I get 300 to 500 emails, texts, IMs every single day, and I try to answer a lot of them, and I try to find help for people because my goal is to help people facilitate in changing their life and in changing the world, okay? So in doing this, I lost the triggers. When you are triggered to use, that is your inner child tapping at you saying, I need your attention. Hello there, I need you to help me because it is becoming unthawed. We covered it up with our addiction, right? And so that's in there. It's becoming unfrozen. It's beginning to move. We're beginning to feel it. We're beginning to feel some of the emotions that we shut down. We're beginning to learn how to deal with them. And it needs our attention. And, I've heard in the last 2 weeks from people that have been sober for 5, 6, 7 years that have relapsed. Do not beat yourself up for it. Don't beat yourself up. One person called me and they said, I don't know how it happened. I go to 4 or 5 meetings a week. And how it happens is you don't recognize that when you're triggered, that's your inner child calling you to bring attention to it, to bring love to it. Now, next week, we're going to talk about how you talk with your inner child and how you, when you do wake up that inner child, when it does want your attention, how do you go about having the dialogue with it so that you become whole? So I'm not going to get into that today. But when the triggers happen, and they come, then that is your inner child needing your attention, and you need to pay attention to it. Now, say that you think you want to drink, and that's the trigger. That's the inner child. And right now, because we haven't talked about how to deal with that inner child, if that happens this next week, I want you to get really quiet, and I want you to go inside and ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom. And you may be prompted to call a sponsor. You may be prompted to different ways. But you don't have to say to the sponsor or whoever, you don't have to say, my inner child is this and this, because they may not understand the concept or have been taught in the concept. So you would say something like, I feel the urge to drink, and I'm reaching out to you for help. Now, when you reach out to people for help, it's hard because of the Zoom right now, and you can't really get the feel for people. But listen to the words that they say when they're talking before. What kind of verbiage do they use? Listen to, are they talking about solutions? Or are they constantly talking about problems? If they're constantly talking about problems, it's not the right person for you. When you're coming into group to the meeting, are they the gossipy queens? Not the right person for you. You want somebody who has gotten the maturity and come through the ranks and knows how to deal with it. Now, I was thinking today, I studied years ago, after my wife and I divorced, my life fell apart, completely fell apart. And I ended up sleeping with a man, as I said, but he happened to be one of the top drug dealers in the city of Oakland. And I knew nothing about drugs, but it wasn't long until I did know about drugs. My life fell apart, and I became so unmanageable, it was unreal. And I began to work with Jimmy Carter's late sister, President Jimmy Carter, Ruth Carter Stapleton. And it was the first time I ever heard of the healing of the memories, the healing of the inner child. And a lot of work that I do in workshops, I try to give you a little bit, just in a tidbit here, but when I do a weekend workshop, we actually go into different segments, is based on what I worked with her. But after I worked with John Bradshaw, who wrote Homecoming, and taught me about being the parent to the child that is within me, and about wholeness and healing, and speaking those things here. Don't speak about the child acting up. Speak of the true child that you know is there. So today we're going to do a little meditation at the end here. And of course, since I have no tech and I'm on my own here, and we're going to figure this out. Marianne Williamson, who also was one of my teachers, said this: our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. So as we do this meditation, let's take a breath, and let us feel that breath going down, that healing breath, right to that little child. Let's, in our mind, envision the light of the Holy Spirit, the light of peace coming down, the light of love I love you, little child. I'm going to take care of you, little child. Do you know if the doctor prescribes a medication for you, you're going to take the medication because you have faith it's going to work. The same is true of some of these spiritual exercises. Put your hands right here. Feel what it's like to love that little child that's acted up and acted out. That little child that has been so painful. Do you know, gay men especially, we know how to have sex, and a lot of it, but we don't know how to have intimacy. Intimacy, into me, see. And we can't allow people to see into us because we can't see into ourselves. So let's take this moment to take a look into ourselves. So take a breath. Let us just be filled with love today. Let us be filled with peace today. There is no condemnation. There is no judging. Where there is love, there is no pain. And as I say many times, God is love, and God can only create and will only create what is a version of God's self and nothing else. Can I say that again? Inside of you, God will create and does create that version of love, that version of God's self, and nothing else. So today, you come from a place of love, and you create. You love, and you create. And what happens is, while a lot of the world is vibrating on this negative level down here, we talked about frequencies, you've been able to raise your frequency above that. And you know, sometimes you'll meet somebody and they'll say, "Oh, did you see that?" And it's a negative thing, and you go, "Oh, well, no." It's not that you were oblivious. It's just that you're vibrating at a higher level. You're seeing something more than a criticism. You're seeing something more than a judgment. Do you know, a long time ago, when I had a restaurant and I hired this girl, I hired her on a Friday before I left on vacation. And when I came back, people said, "You know that black girl you hired, she is really good." And I said, "I don't know that I hired a black girl." And they said, "Yeah, Nina." And I said, "Oh, is she black?" And they said, "What did you think she was?" And I just said, "Well, maybe Ethiopian or something. I don't know." But you see, I didn't see Nina as a race. I saw Nina as Nina. And today I see you whole. I see you complete. I see in my mind's eye that you begin to work with that inner child and heal that inner child. And remember, when the triggers come, the inner child is just telling you that it wants to talk to you, and listen to it, and it will help you to not go off the deep end too. Till next Sunday, and we're gonna get a little deeper next Sunday, because I kind of want to lay a little foundation for you here. And I'm sending you lots of love, and I'm starting to ramble. So, ciao.